This is something what American Revolution topics are. First of all, you can see background, means before the revolution, what was the scenario as far as America was concerned. Second, as usual, for everything there must have been some reason. So for American Revolution also there must have been some factors, causes, reasons. Third, this is very lengthy sequence of events. I will show you what all are there. Sequence of events means what all incidents happened in this American Revolution. Fourth, it's hardly one slide. We will look into what were the factors that led to the loss of Britain in this revolution. As usual, there must have been some impact of this American Revolution. Guys, impact, as we said in the morning, positive, negative, or impact can be impact on America, impact on Britain, impact on Europe, even impact on India. There might be something like that. Of course, we'll look into the nature of this, that is some analysis has to be done. And finally, American Constitution. Please remember, we will hardly see 2-3 points in this, because if you all know, your paper 2 GS has a topic comparison of Indian Constitution with the constitutions of the world. That's in the polity section, not in history. There anyways you will study that what type of legislature they have, what judiciary they have, executive they have, and all that. Am I clear till this? This is totally clear. Now just to give you an idea, I was going through the background. So in this slides you will see, we will look into who were the people who came to America. So for example, those who have studied modern, you all would remember in India, who all came? Portuguese, Dutch, Danes, French, ultimately English ruled. Similarly here also you will see Spaniards, Spanish, they were the first to settle in America. Apart from that, Russians came, French came, British came, and ultimately Britishers settled over here. If you all recall, in India's case, there was a East India Company that came. They got a charter from the British ruler that okay, you go, you do the business. Similarly, you will see here also a company would come, they would get a charter from the British ruler in those days, and they would start coming and staying over here. When we talk about America, there you will see 13 colonies would be struggling in this. Britain versus 13 colonies of America would be there. You can see this is the eastern side of US, and these 13 states can be divided into 3 categories. One is the northern ones, which are known as New England colonies. Then there are middle colonies, and further there are south colonies. Nobody will ever ask you to remember all these 13 states' name. Just for your information, the names are given. Try to remember any 2-3 and write after that etc. 13 colonies like this and etc. That's more than sufficient. So the first part of the chapter you will see, this is all about background. Am I clear? Then you will see reasons. There will be some general reasons, and there would be Enlightenment thinkers, what they have exactly said, which has forced the people to think about that. Then comes, as I said, the lengthiest part of this chapter. Just to give you an idea, under this don't write, every point is there. Proclamation of 1763, Stamp Act 1765, Rockingham, then Townshend Duties 1767, Tea Act 1773, Boston Tea Party, Intolerable Act 1774, First Philadelphia. Then comes American War of Independence. I have written this. Let me complete this chapter. I will make you write this whole page. Why? This way your entire chronology will be very clear. What happened? When did it happen? You need to remember that. If tomorrow anyone asks you, what were the major events that happened during American Revolution? You have to just start writing about them. Am I clear about that? Let's start the first one. That's your background. Just write 2-3 lines. Your topic is American Revolution. If you want, you can draw this. These are the 7 topics rather. These are the 7 topics that we are going to discuss under this chapter. The first topic would be your background. Background is not that important except for 2-3 points, and I want you people to remember them. I'll tell you, if you all are done with this 7, whatever is there on the board. Remember guys, Spanish, write down, Spanish were the first Europeans to explore and settle in US. What do we call right now as USA? Spanish were the first to settle in this area. Of course, you all know, apart from Spanish, write down, apart from Spanish, British, French, Dutch and Russians. Dutch and Russians came to America. These are the different nationalities who all have come to America. We will mainly concentrate here only on French, British, to some extent Spaniards' name would come here and there. Everyone, the topic is American War of Independence. Remember, I have already shown you the names of 13 British colonies. So just write the next line. 13 British colonies of America, 13 British colonies of America fought against the British between 1775 to 1783. Between 1775 to 1783. And this constitutes the American Revolutionary War. And this constitutes the American Revolutionary War, which ultimately culminated in American independence through the Treaty of Paris. You need to remember Treaty of Paris, very important. Make it, underline it, very, very important, because that's the final treaty by which Britain would accept that, okay, fine enough, America is going to be granted its independence. Forget rest of the points. I'll come back to this again. Now guys, understand here. As I said, Britain also formed a company. Just like in India, they had come as British East India Company. Similarly, in America also, they came as a colony, or sorry, as a company. Please write down the name. The Virginia Company. The Virginia Company of London. The Virginia Company of London. Each one of you, those who attended modern history, can you remember when was English East India Company formed? 1600. Charter was given in 1609. For all of you, you can see here, they have come to America around 1607. So this Virginia Company, they are arriving in America and establishing their first base around 1607. So it is all happening around the same time, in the west as well as in the east. Are you getting my point? So they were coming to India also around the same time, and they are coming to this place also around the same time. Please remember, same king. He is the same King James I who had given the charter for India also, 1609. He is the same king who is giving the charter to this company also. Please write the name of the king, King James I. Why I am telling you this slide, listen to me very carefully. When this company had arrived in Britain with charter from King James I, all of you read this line. This charter had assured the original settlers that we British will come to your place, but you will have all the liberties. Do not worry, we are not going to take away any liberty of yours. We are not going to infringe on anything. In fact, we'll abide and bond within England, just like what the English people have. We will give you the same rights that the others have. Try to understand what they are saying. What I am trying to say is that the relation between British and American colonies in the beginning was very good. Everything deteriorated after a particular point, that is 1763. I'll tell you how. Everybody please understand this, that the relation, if you want in clear words, if you want, write this. The relation between American colonies, and the British power was smooth in the beginning, with some irritants coming in due course of time. What are these irritants? I'll tell you in a minute. What I'm trying to say is, in the beginning the relations are good, but slowly and slowly some deterioration happened. Why that deterioration happened? There is one word for that: mercantilism. See, basically what happened was that the Britishers, initially they promised that, bhai, you will be like my brother. We'll give you everything, the same respect, same power, same liberty, same equality. But slowly and slowly, the Britishers, they started misutilizing American, land for their own benefits, British people benefits. So the American original colonists, the people who were residing in America, they could see very clearly that Britishers were trying to extract as much profit as possible from America. That is nothing but the idea of mercantilism, to expand your profit more and more. If you all remember, 3 phases of economic imperialism in our country, in India also. The first phase was mercantile phase. What was the second phase? Industrial. And third was financial. So here also the first phase was mercantile. Just give me a second. Everyone look at the third question. American Revolution was an economic revolt against mercantilism. Substantiate. American Revolution is against nothing else but the misutilization of resources of America for only the benefit of whose? British people. Americans started to feel that their resources were being taken away. Now each one of you can see this is very simple question, and you will be able to answer this within half an hour. Now everyone, British in those days, the British, what happened was that they were earning more from wool industry. Around 1600, the Britishers could earn much more through wool industry than their food industry. So what had started to happen was that they had started to change the utilization of their land. Rather than growing food crop, they had started to keep it for fallow so that cattle could rear. Anyways, they will get wool and they will sell and make profits out of that. Now invariably, if you are not growing enough, how will you feed your people? So here came who? America. That go over there, utilize their land, do the production of food grains and feed your people. That was another thing that came to their ideas or mindset. So if you all see, and again I'm saying, you can ignore this. Just write for your sake any 2 names. I'm not worried about that. Any 2 names. You can write Georgia, you can write New York. That's more than sufficient. 13 colonies. I'm giving you 2 examples. No need to remember all 13. Just remember 2. They are divided into 3 portions: New England colony, Middle colony and the Southern colony. It's up to you whichever names you want to write. I'm not worried about that. Next month anyways the elections are, you will hear a lot of these names. Georgia, for example, is one of those swing states. It's one of the critical states. Pennsylvania is there. These are the states which both the sides they want. Most of the states, how many? 50 they have, na? 50? 52? Whatever, almost 37, 38 choose the same people. It's only 13, 14 states which move here or there. Out of that you will see a lot of those names. Just write 1 line. How many of you remember 7-year war? Yes, Carnatic. When did it happen? Few minutes back I told you the relations between the British and the Americans was very good. Some irritants started to come and the turning point is 63. What is happening is, just look at the board, I'll show you the slides. In this 7-year war, Britain was fighting against French. Invariably, this fight was there in Europe, this fight was there in India, and this fight was also there in America. Initially in this fight, French were winning. Now, if somebody is winning, you take some steps to defeat them. The Prime Minister of Britain, whose name is William Pitt, heard this name? That is William Pitt the Younger. Correct? You are correct. There are two William Pitt. This is first William Pitt and Pitt's India Act, William Pitt the Younger, the second William Pitt. This is the first one. So this man, in order to win that war, what he took was, he took huge amounts of money, loan. During the war, he won the war. 1763, we know who won this war. It is British who won this war. But later, after the war, when the war ended, they found out that they had been under huge amount of debt, loan. And how to repay that loan, because Britishers wanted that Americans also should share some amount of this loan amount. And Americans were like, why should we do it? Plus the fact that British were able to defeat France in this war and removed France from Canada, all this created the first set of irritants as far as Britain and France are concerned in those days. Am I clear? Right, one slide. 7-Year War, 1756 to 1763. 7-Year War, 1756 to 1763. You have to remember the year, very, very important. 1756 to 63. Next line, Britain versus France. Britain versus France. This war is nothing but Britain and their allies versus France and their allies. Next line, in the beginning of this war, Britain suffered several defeats at the hands of French. In the beginning of the war, British suffered several defeats at the hands of French. Next line, underline that, very important, which forced, because they were losing this war, so which forced the then Prime Minister of England, William Pitt, please do underline this line, which forced the then Prime Minister of England, William Pitt, to fund this war by taking heavy loans. Please underline this line. This is going to be the biggest problem, financial issues, which will lead to American Revolution. Because you can understand, till 63, they are okay. After 63, all the problems would begin. And I'll show you. As an example, right? Next line, example. Pitt financed Prussia. Guys, Prussia was a country in those days, a state in those days, later merged with Germany. Prussia's struggle. You can see if anyone has spelling issue, Prussia's struggle. Pitt financed Prussia's struggle against France and even reimbursed the Native Americans. That means their allies in America were supported by the British at this point of time. The last two lines that you have written, guys, this is your trigger for America's independence war. Each one of you please understand, Pitt has taken lots of loan. Now all of you think about this. How will Pitt be able to repay these loans? Invariably, Pitt started thinking that I have taken these loans to help whom? The Native Americans. And that's why not only Pitt but the future leaders of Britain, they started bringing many taxes on whom? Americans. And Americans started to have the grudge that you are taxing us, but you are not giving us representation in your parliament. What they started to claim was no taxation without representation. That is, give us membership of your parliaments, then only put any taxes. British on the other hand were very clear that we will put taxes on you to show that you are our territory. So this is the trigger. So if you want to write down this 7-year war. This 7-year war thus proved to be the immediate trigger. For American Revolution, write AR. For the American Revolution. Basically, we are done with background of American War of Independence. Please look at whatever you have written in the last one page. Any place where you people have any difficulty. First part is done. I am giving a quick recap. Many European powers have come to America. Main is Spain, France and Britain. Spain is the first power to settle over here. Later, the British companies also come with the charter from their king, King James I, and they settle in 13 colonies. Of course, they settled in Virginia first, and slowly, altogether there are 13 colonies over here. Initially, the relation between Britain and these colonies are good, but later, thanks to this 7-year war, this relation will deteriorate. Even before this 7-year war, mercantilism, I'll show you the points. For example, Americans were said that any good that you export, first of all, should come to British port. You should always use British ship only. You cannot use anybody else's ship. So all such rules were already there, which had made the Americans very unhappy. But this 7-year war will be the immediate trigger. Remember who is the Prime Minister during this time? It is William Pitt. You have to remember this much. Still, anyone having any query till this point? This is all your background of American War of Independence. Now everyone, 7-year war happened, done, dusted. Who won? Britain. France was removed. Now guys, Britain had two challenges now. After France has been removed from this area, there are two challenges. One you all can understand, money. That is, we just now studied, to finance the 7-year war, the Britishers had taken huge amount of loans. Now invariably they have to repay that loan. That is one challenge of theirs, for which you will see they will put taxes on on American colonies, which would be one major irritant. Guys, another big trouble for British was that after French had moved away, who is occupying their land? Whichever land, like Canada. All these came under British. Now, some of you will think, what's the problem if more land has come? The problem is you have to think about their administration. How will you manage them? Because in all these areas, there were many small American original people, inhabitants who were staying. And with all these original people, the British or the French, they would have their own understandings. For example, if you all have some idea about geography, in North America, you have a mountains named as Appalachians. Rocky is also there, sandy, rocky, Appalachians are there. It's somewhere here. Somewhere here. No, I'm not exactly showing, but it is there. Till now, most of these colonies of America were mostly in this portion. Now, once the French have been removed, and even before the French had removed, many of these people, they had started to move this side of mountains. Specifically, those people like Rohit Kumar, who would buy the land at very cheap price and would sell it at later times. I cannot buy land nowadays, but then in those days, these speculative traders who would speculate that let's buy something at a cheap rate. Once the prices have gone up, we would sell it at a very, very higher price. So such people had started to move this side. But invariably, the native Indians, they were very, very unhappy with these people. See, native Indians don't have problem with traders, wool traders, because they would come, buy the wool, go away. But these people have started settling in these areas. That's why you will see that very soon there would be one rebellion here, which is known as Pontiac's Rebellion. I'll show you. One more reason for that rebellion was that earlier there used to be an understanding that if Rohit Kumar is this man and he is a tribal chief, the Britishers would keep on gifting them something. But after winning the war, the British commanders, they thought no more need to give any gift to these tribal people or original inhabitants. All this made these, original settlers unhappy, and this all led to a rebellion known as Pontiac Rebellion. I'll show you that in a second. See here. This is the rebellion, Pontiac's Rebellion. Why is this rebellion happening? Because I told you this is a tussle with people who are living in New France, the area where France people were there, but now they have been removed. It is now the Britishers who have occupied these areas. So in these areas, the Britishers are having a tussle. I told you one reason for this tussle is discontinuation of the giftings. Earlier they used to gift something to the local chieftains, local, tribal chiefs. But now the British commanders had stopped this. Last of this is the immediate change in outlook of the British. You can see attitudinal change of the British towards the American colonies. Please understand. What is happening is, if I am the British, I expect that Rupesh should understand, he is an American man, that I helped him in this war and he should now share some burden of the war cost. They, on the other hand, were not ready to do that. So with this regards, there was some change as far as the attitude of the British were also concerned here. Just write 2-3 lines, I'll tell you. You have written till 7-year war. Write the first point, geographical and financial troubles. Everyone, geographical and financial troubles for British after 7-year war. For British after 7-year war. Each one of you, you can see I said 2 words. Geographical and financial. Geographical is what? The land which has been now vacated by France is being occupied by whom? British. And they have to run the administration over there. That's your geographical. So just write the lands which were vacated by France. The lands which were vacated by France, and for example you can write in bracket Canada. The lands which were vacated by France, bracket Canada, were now to be run and administered. Were now to be run and administered by the British authorities. by the British authorities. Full stop. The problem was that the subjects means people. The problem was that the subjects of this area did not want to be subjects of British Crown. Second point is financial. Running the administration of these areas meant financing the administration, which was also a critical problem. Right, one last line. Attitudinal, this is next topic. Attitudinal shift of British also took place. Attitudinal shift of British also took place. Attitudinal shift of the British also took place because during the war, the British government could not persuade the American, or you can American/colonial legislatures to contribute. You want something again? Legislatures to contribute for the expenses of the war. Guys, what I am trying to say is that the relations, you can see why they are deteriorating. British wanted Americans to contribute. They thought we are fighting for you, and Americans did not want to contribute. On the other hand, everyone, please remember, from America, France is gone. So the confidence of these colonists, they had gone up because they had defeated whom? They were also involved in this war. So the confidence of other side also had gone up. So just write one last line. Also, the colonists means American people, had a new sense of self-confidence. Had a sense of self-confidence after the defeat of France. After the defeat of France. And they started questioning. The need of British, and they started questioning the need of British forces in America. Colonists are like, why should they have their forces now? France is already defeated. The colonists were like, we do not need them anymore. I am leaving the Pontiac Rebellion right now. Just leave one paragraph, at least a space for 5-6 lines. I'll tell you after some time, though I have said, but I'll make you write it after some time. Not that important here. That's why I'm leaving it over here. Now everyone, for 2 minutes look at the board. The war is over. in 1763. Now, Britain requires money. As I said, for this they will put what? Taxes on British colonies. Just look at the board only for a second. You can see we are going to get into the causes of revolt of the American against the British. And the reason for that is British want to take out as much money as possible. On the other hand, the British people in America, the American colonists, they were saying no taxation without representation. They were saying give us the chance to be there in British Parliament. Then you make any law. Before that, you cannot put any taxes on us. All of you, if you remember, in the beginning only I showed you the initial charter of the King James I said you would have the same rights that is given to whom? To the British people. But that was not the case. I'll show you one slide. Please look at this slide, all the 5 lines, all of you. Americans were prevented from starting their own industries. Colony could not send the goods by a non-British ship. If you have to send anything outside, use British ship only. You could not export any raw material to any other country. First of all, send it to Britain. Then from Britain, you can take any place of the world. Number 4, for every non-British good that is coming in America, there was huge tax or duty that was levied by the British government. Number 5, even if some ships were allowed to go somewhere else, as I said, the true trade route was via England only. All of you, don't you see there is a clear-cut discrimination against the against the American colonists by the British. I'm going back to this so you can see here, Americans were neither given the same rights as the British, nor did they have representation in the British Parliament. So please write, I have said one paragraph you will leave. We are starting the major topic, causes of the American Revolution. Please write the topic, causes of the American Revolution, causes of the revolt. Causes of the revolt against the British. Causes of the revolt against British. In the introduction, please understand, most historians, write it, most historians do not point out, most historians do not point out any one event for the revolt, but a series of disagreements, over how the British were treating the Americans resulted in this revolt. Just write one more line. British Parliament had no American representation. British Parliament had no American representation, which led to the rallying cry, here the point, rallying cry, no taxation without representation. Underline these 4 words. No taxation without representation. No taxation without representation. No taxation without representation. Everyone, look at the board for a second. I just now showed you no free trade for colonies. Everybody understood this? American ship has to go to Britain. If the goods are coming, there are heavy duties involved in that. The raw materials of American colony only would be going to Britain, and all those rules which are clearly what? Discriminatory in nature. I've already said no representation in the British Parliament. Just now we have written that. That's one more reason. Okay? I'll write this. 1, 2, 3. Unlimited search and seizure. Search and seizure, you understand now? Somebody would come and show you a warrant and say that I want to search your house, I want to seize your property and all that. British authorities had given themselves this power that they could do. You can see this British officer only could do. They could indefinite number, unlimited. They could do if there is a suspicion that any American is involved in smuggling. They could do indefinite numbers of check of their residence, their building, all without warning or supervision. This was something that was hurting the British in those days, the Americans in those days, that how could you search our residence, how could you search without having any valid, warrant. Law is writs of assistance, no need to remember exact word. If you remember unlimited seize and search, that's more than sufficient. Fourth, direct control of criminal justice system. See, what used to happen was that the Britishers would now appoint their own people. Along with that, do you know this jury thing? Do you have any idea what is jury thing?
Instead of the judge, the selector.
See, presently what happens is you have judge would be there and he would pronounce if you are guilty, not guilty. Earlier, even in India, I think till 1960s, there used to be a jury. That is, there would be a judge, but then there would be 10 people sitting. The whole case would be heard in front of them, and those 10 people, for example, would tell what do they believe? Do they believe this is correct or incorrect? I'm not sure if you people watch Hindi movies. There was not the actual representation, there was a movie called Rustam, I think, Akshay Kumar. These days people don't watch his movies, but then it came around 7-8 years ago on a very famous trial of a Navy commander, Nanavati. That was a very famous this thing. In 1950s, the matter had even gone to the Indian president in those days because he was a decorated officer, very highly respected officer. His whole matter was heard in jury. I think that was one of the last cases that in India jury people had supervised. So what is happening here is that the British government, they started stopping the colonist people any jury trial. Now there would be only what? A judge. He would or she would, usually he only, would pronounce the judgment, whether the verdict is of punishment or anything. There is no jury trial. So that is also something that they felt was injustice against them. The colonists thought that this is interference in their own, I would say, judicial system. So this was your fourth. Fifth, destruction of local self-government. Wherever there used to be elections earlier, in all those places, what the British authorities did, they stopped having elections, and rather they started to have appointments or nomination. Who would nominate? Direct the Britishers would nominate. So instead of locally elected government, what is happening is that here attempts were made by nominating them, and directly these nominations would be from British. Clearly here also what is happening? Their autonomy is being taken away. This was your fifth. Sixth, you can see Parliament could say any person is tainted. If I say Rupesh Kumar is a tainted man, I can take all over his property. Britishers gave this power to their officers that you can say that this American is a tainted person. Tainted, you understand now? Somebody who is having some sort of guilt. They would say he is guilty of whatever XYZ, and his whole property would be taken over by whom? By the British. These all are general causes. These all have slowly and slowly made the British made the Americans angry against whom? British. 7th, guys, nothing. Immunity and impunity to the cruel British officers. Many times the British officers who were cruel, their matter of the court would be taken to Britain, where usually there would not be any proof against them, and the matters would be dropped by the British. You can see the last line. British leaders were concerned to pass a law mandating any British officers accused of any offence to be tried in England. Invariably, the punishment, the crime is done in America, and the judgment or the trial will happen in England. Who will go? Who will be the proof? Who will give any sort of proof over there? So invariably, there would be witnesses would be very, very hard to come by. Lastly, the Britishers passed a law under which any person's residence could be used to quarter, means to reside, British soldiers in those days. So even it is my house, Britishers can say, no, you will have to keep British soldiers in your house. You will have to make them reside. So you can see here, individual colonists. So if I am an individual person, I am required to let British soldiers live in my house. All these 8 are general causes. Remember any 2, 3. I'm not asking you to remember all 8. But do write all the 8 at one place. So you are writing, just give me a second, you have 1 minute for each. I hope you all have written. Wherever you wrote no taxation without representation, or write it this. First point, no taxation without representation. These all are general causes. First is no taxation without representation. You can write one line, there is no representation of Americans. There is no representation of Americans in British Parliament. There was no representation of Americans in British Parliament. But they could put any tax, on the American people. No need to remember, you will see all these sugar tax, tea tax, all that will come in some time. That's your first point. If anyone wants, this is your second point. No free trade for colonies. Guys, just write that every good has to go by British ship only. It has to go to Britain only. Then only can go to any other colony. Any point you can write under this. No free trade for colonies. Point number 2, the second general cause. No free trade for British colonies. Remember, the more points you remember, the better your answer becomes. Because one way of writing answer, and I'll give you some questions also, at the end of the day, in a 250 word or 200 word answer, a lot of you say that, sir, I don't know how to complete my conclusion, how to write and end it something. A lot of times, what I had done in many of my answers in mains times, because I'll tell you practically, all this good answer writing goes in dustbin once you enter the mains paper, examination hall. There the only thing is, let me end all the 20 questions. Good, bad doesn't come to your mind. What hand says, you do. So many times my last line would be, apart from these, there were also some other like this. And I would conclude. If I am not getting a very good proper, and I'll tell you very frankly, I have written 4 mains. Based on my own experience, I can say, out of 20 answers, we only write 6, 7 good answers. Or rather, I would use very good answers. 6, 7 is good. Rest 6, 7 is average. That's how that paper is. For 6, 7 answers, you know what to end, what to conclude. But in all other cases, you will just write, apart from this, these were also the reasons for the XYZ, whatever it is. Am I clear? This is done. Everybody, please complete this point. I'm moving to the third one. Guys, unlimited search and seizure. I hope you can understand this by this only. That the Britishers could search your houses without any warrant. They could do unlimited search and seizure. Seizure means property could be seized. Any building they could supervise, any residence they could supervise, all this without warning. And invariably these all were misutilized, misused a lot. This is your third point. Unlimited search and seizure. Clear? Absolutely clear, guys? Third point. Fourth, direct control of criminal justice system. I'll make you write one, just write this line. I'll make you write one line. Direct control of criminal justice system. Write one line under this. British government began to deny British colonists, that means American colonists, jury trials and rather placed both punishment and verdict in the hands of judges. Guys, some of you might be thinking that are the judges totally going to be partial, that you have to be worried? Because earlier there was jury, okay, now there is judge. If you are so much worried about the judge, the reason was that the British government said we will pay these judges, we will supervise them also. So everything was now in the hands of British authorities. That's why there was so much of, worry at this point of time as far as the Americans are concerned. This was your which point? Fourth. Fifth, you can write destruction of local self-government. Fifth, destruction of local self-government. Destruction of local self-government. Just write one line. The local self-governments were denied autonomy. That's more than sufficient. Local self-governments were denied autonomy. Moving to the next point. If you want, you can write this whole line. Extraneous executive powers to the British Parliament over the colonies. I usually forget this point. I am not able to remember this. But then you can write this: extraneous executive powers to the British Parliament over the colonies. Under this, Parliament could declare any person to be painted. Parliament could declare any person to be tainted, arresting them and confiscating their properties. Once anybody has been said to be tainted, they could be arrested by the British and their property could be seized. Arresting them and their properties also could be seized at this point of time. Seventh, if seventh it is, immunity and impunity to the corrupt British officers. Immunity and impunity to the corrupt British officers. immunity and impunity to the corrupt British officers. Last line can be written under this, that the matter was shifted to Britain, where usually you would not get people to prove or witnesses. Guys, under this they would save their officers. Britishers would save their officers by shifting the matter to Britain. Crime is committed in America. Now matter will be heard in Britain. Who would go over there? So usually witnesses would not be there. So if you want, you can write the last lines. The corrupt and cruel officers, cases would be shifted to England. Cases would be shifted to England. Cases would be shifted to England, where witnesses would be hard to find. Where witnesses would be hard to find. Last general cause, forced quartering of soldiers. Quarter, you all understand now guys? Quarter, PWD quarter. Yes. So quartering means soldiers would be made to live, even if you don't like, they can stay in your residences. So forced quartering of soldiers. Forced quartering of soldiers. So you can see here, individual colonialists would be required to let British soldiers to stay in their residences or private houses. Guys, you have a minute. Please look at all the 8-9 general causes. If you people have any doubt in any of the 8-9 causes, you can ask me. Again, I am repeating, it's not needed that you remember all the 9. Remember 4, 5, but then what sort of question do you expect from this part? What were the reasons behind the American Revolution? And invariably, the more the points you write, the better your answer. So complete freedom on you how much you want to remember. You have a minute. Please, if you have any query right now, please ask me. Bhai, if you will force me, my house, and I have to make somebody live whom I don't like, specifically because these soldiers had been already implicated, in some case called Boston murders. In Boston, some people had been killed. Americans had been killed by British soldiers. So invariably it will be very uncomfortable for me to live with those who have been accused of killing my own people, my side of people. So I did not like, and nobody would like. This is breach of my privacy. Why would somebody else live in my house? In simple words, if I say like that. Any other point, guys? See, wherever you are right now, leave exactly one page over there. Just write one topic. Role of Enlightenment thinkers. That is the second cause of our, you can see on the board, role of Enlightenment thinkers. Leave one page, exactly one page over here. Role of Enlightenment thinkers. Role of Enlightenment thinkers. Leave one page over there and look at the board. All of you, Enlightenment thinkers were people like intellectual type people. I'll show you on board. Montesquieu is there, Voltaire is there, Rousseau is there, Locke is there, Jefferson is there. There are so many people who have given their ideologies, that why is the British wrong, what should the people do in all this and all that, which we will do after some time. We are not going to do, but then please understand, these thinkers also contributed massively in the rising of Americans against the British. Because see, we and you, ordinary people, might be, people who would take part in the revolt, but these were the people who gave the direction. Okay, this has to be done. So we will talk about them, which books they have written, what is their ideology. For example, Montesquieu has written The Spirit of Laws, Voltaire has written this, Rousseau has written this, what they have, told all this after some time. Right now I am leaving this topic. You can see Paine is there, Thomas Jefferson is there. These all are big names of that time. Benjamin Franklin is there. All these are big names of this. And these names would come after some time once we are done with the revolution. These people, some of them like Franklin, would be helping and assisting in the formation of new American Constitution. He would be involved in Philadelphia conventions and all. Later when the American Constitution will be prepared, Benjamin Franklin, you can see, he has worked in all these places. So we will see them all at the last together. Right now, I am simply saying they also contributed in the American War of Independence. Am I clear about this? Now, we are coming to the major points. 1763, war, 7-year war has happened. Now, the king gives a, proclamation. In 1763, the king has proclaimed. So you can see, guys, I am going to my next topic, major events. Please write the first major event, 1763 proclamation, and put, 1 star in this. 1763 proclamation. Now listen to me. Everyone, few minutes back I said, this is America. This is your Appalachian Mountains. When the war was going on, many people had come on this side. Some of them, I said, speculative traders and all. Some might be people whom the Britishers had given land on that side, that see, you have helped us, we are ready to give you something and you can settle over that side. Now in 1763 proclamation, the king said, all such things which might have been provided in the past, they all are cancelled. Everybody was asked to come back on this side. Now some of you will ask, why the king is proclaiming this? Reason for that was that British authorities understood that if these people keep on going that side unchecked, it would lead to more and more clashes with whom? Native Indians, those who are the original inhabitants of America. So these people were asked to come back. Now think about Rohit Kumar, who had gone there, had thought that after 5 years I will sell this land, and when the 5 years had been over, I am being asked, no, you cannot sell, come back. So invariably you all can understand why I would be very angry with whom? British government. So the proclamation of 1763, please understand, is one of the factors which led to many people becoming angry with whom? British authorities or British government. Please look at the slide for a second, guys. No need to remember the name of the king, but at this moment the king's name is King George III. 1763 is end of the 7-year war. What this proclamation says, that Appalachian Mountains, there a line is drawn, that this is the boundary. Anybody who had gone westward, west is this side, they all were asked to come back. So any settler who had moved west of this Appalachians, they were asked to come which side? Each side of this mountain. Invariably all those people whom the British government had earlier given land, that you have helped us right now against France and all these allotments were now what? Cancelled. Why was all this done? Why was all this being done? Because they understood that if this large areas, this land hungry settlers, they go that side, invariably it will lead to what? Clashes with the native Indians. We have not written one slide, Pontiac's rebellion. That was also one of those only where the local people had clashed with whom? With the British. So invariably, when these people came this side, you can see the proclamation also troubled many of the wealthiest and most powerful men in the colonies, because these people had invested heavily in the lands based on what? Because they were speculative land companies thinking today we will make, tomorrow we will get 10 times, 20 times. Now none of them are going to get any money on this. So invariably, guys, all these wealthy men, they suffered huge, significant losses over here. Each one of you, I am repeating again, Proclamation of 1763 is the first major event. This is just after the war. Whoever has gone west, please come this side. Invariably, it created losses to all those who had settled or had plans to settle, and these people would be angry on whom? British. Any doubt in proclamation? I'll make you right. Just understand the major events. There are around 7-8 major events. Is there any problem in this proclamation? Anyone? Look at the board. Any problem with this? If you don't have any problem, my second major event is Stamp Act 1765. Simple. Britishers require money. Why do they require money? Because in 1763 war, they have taken huge loans. Now they made a law. You can see Stamp Act. Who has passed this law? British Parliament. Under this act, anything would require a stamp. You all understand stamp. You know, land property, house property, everything, stamp is there. Government issues that stamp. Similarly, that way, what does government earn? Revenue. So the British government, through this Stamp Act, you can see who passes this. First act which is imposed on these North Americans. This is the first direct tax. No need to know what exactly is this, but you can see here, any diploma, any pamphlet, any license, any marriage license, will, newspaper, everything would be having what? One stamp. Whatever money will come out of this will help whom? The British troops. Because we have already studied, they have taken a lot of debt during this 7-year war. Invariably, all of you, will the Americans like that this new tax has been imposed on them? Again, no taxation without representation. You are putting taxes on us. You are not telling us how this money would be utilized. Invariably, the Americans were now what? They were very, very unhappy. Please remember, Prime Minister now is George Grenville. Am I clear? Next, there is a declaration. The declaration's name, you can see, leave this for a second. Rockingham Declaration. Guys, basically they are saying, the Britishers wanted to tell through this declaration that our sovereignty on America is similar to our sovereignty over Britain. That is, we can make any law with regards to America. The British Parliament is sovereign, supreme. They can make any law, just like they make laws for Britain and it is applicable on entire Britain. Similarly, laws can be made on America and they would be totally applicable on America also. This is very, very important. They want to show this. Why? Because against the Stamp Act, the British faced some opposition from Americans, and that's why they had repealed it in 1766. So in the next year only, this Rockingham Declaration was brought, which showed that we are sovereign with regards to all the matter related to America. Am I clear? Write 3 points and then we will move ahead. The topic is the important, major events. First major event, Proclamation of 1763. First major event, Proclamation of 1763. King George III issued it. King George III issued it asking all those who had moved, west of Appalachian Mountains, all those who had moved west of Appalachian Mountains to come back on the eastern side. Appalachian, they had gone that side. No, you come back on this side. Invariably, this made some people who had invested, this made some people who had invested very, very unhappy, or invested in lands, very, very unhappy, and they suffered huge financial losses. Next, Stamp Act 1765. Next is Stamp Act 1765, issued by George Grenville. On board it is written, he is the Prime Minister. Issued by George Grenville. Purpose, guys, here, to help finance for British troops in the colonies. Why this act? The purpose is to help finance for the British troops in the colonies. Invariably, the colonists were unhappy. Same logic, no taxation without representation. How can you put this tax on us? Am I clear? If you want, you can write one more line. First direct tax on Americans by British. First direct tax on Americans by British. Leave one line, later you can write if you want which all things are included under this, though it's not needed. Next point, in 1766, under this only, in 1766, under pressure from Americans, the law was repealed. Means cancelled. This law or this act, Stamp Act, was taken away. The law was repealed. Stamp Act 1765. And the last topic that we have done is which declaration? Rockingham Declaration. Just write this second line, you have to remember. In simple words, they are saying we can make any law on America just like we make any law for Britain. British Parliament is supreme. I would always request you people, until and unless it's a quotation, try to write in your own words. That way you will, your own words, you will always remember. So just simple. British Parliament can make any law on America just like they make any law for Britain. They are supreme with regards to that. Clear? Each one of you, if you see, things are happening very, very quickly. 56 to 63, the war has ended. 63, you have the declaration. 65, you have the Stamp Act. 66, that is repealed. Very soon you have Rockingham Declaration. And now we are moving to Townshend Acts. For 5 minutes, again drop your pen. Once you are done with this, listen to me. All of you, if you all see, 2014 question I showed to you that ultimately this war of independence was what? A war against mercantilism. And you can see from Stamp Act and all that, these are the points that you had to write. Am I clear about this? Okay, everyone, I'm moving and just listen and look at the board. Townshend. 67 onwards. These are 5 different acts passed by British. Nobody has to remember all the 5. Please see, 4 are in 1767, 1 in 1768. Later all these laws will be repealed. Because what the Americans had done was, in the case of Stamp Act also, Americans stopped buying British products. Guys, just like our Swadeshi and boycott. Same thing they are doing here. They stopped buying British products. So invariably the Britishers were under intense pressure and they removed the Stamp Act. Similarly, when these taxes were introduced, British Parliament wanted to show that, see, we are the in charge. We will put any taxes. Again the British people did, again the Americans did what? They started protesting. So you can see, leave this one, leave this. Okay. See, again the resistance prompted the occupation of Boston. As used earlier, they started to do non-importation of British goods, that they would not buy the British goods, and invariably it put pressure on whom? British. Now everyone, why these 5 duty or acts, you can say? As I said earlier, this is to, I would say, communicate to the Americans that, see, we are the masters. Whatever we want, we will do. Along with that, invariably all this would give some money and all. So this revenue would be used to pay the governors and judges. And this is the most important point, which is in blue, to show that there is British authority. Whatever British want, they can do. They have the right to tax the colonies. Am I clear? Just write Townshend Acts. No need to write the 5 acts. Just write Townshend Duty 1767. Under that write, since 1767, 5 laws were passed. You can leave space, later you can write this 5 laws. Since 1767, 5 laws were passed with the intention, and underline what I am going to say after this, with the intention to establish the precedent, that the British Parliament has the right to, tax the colonies. This is the most important thing. Guys, other objectives you forget, I don't have a problem. This is the most important objective, to show that, see, we are the masters, we can put any law on you people. I want you to remember this last line. Other purposes are all okay. This is the most important point, to establish that the British could tax them anytime, wherever they wanted. Am I clear? Please write, how did they protest? Just write method of protest, non-importation of British goods. Method of protest, non-importation of British goods. Method of protest, non-importation of British goods. Ultimately, write one last line, ultimately the colonists again succeeded. But not before, and underline the next 3 words, but not before Boston Massacre of 1770. But not before Boston Massacre. Some Americans were killed by the British here. But not before the Boston Massacre of 1770. All of you. British brought Stamp Act, had to be removed. British brought Townshend Acts, had to be removed. Invariably, Britishers are not able to impose their order on the Americans. Now they brought an act called Tea Act of 1773. All of you know, na? English East India Company used to take tea from India and would sell it in all over the world, and a lot of that was sold in American market. But what these Britishers had done was, they had stopped consuming the British tea which East India Company used to bring. Rather, they would buy Dutch tea, which was smuggled at a cheaper price. Now, all of you think, English tea costs this much, Dutch tea costs this much. How can you ensure that the Americans drink more British tea? This can be done by bringing down its prices. How can you bring down the prices? By removing any duty or any tax that is imposed on this tea. So everyone, you can see Tea Act of 1773. All the townshend, please look at the board, all the townshend duties had been removed. But now to help East India Company, the Britishers passed Tea Act of 1773. What they are doing? Eliminating all the custom duty. Thus the tea which is brought by East India Company becomes what? Cheaper. And now the American who are till now consuming what? Smuggled Dutch tea can consume what? British. Invariably it is helping whom? British. In response to this, what happened was the famous Boston incident. Have you heard Boston Tea Party? Anyone? Absolutely. The entire shipment of tea which was there in Boston port, some native Indians, native people of there, and one Mr. Samuel, he threw all that tea in the sea. That's known as Boston Tea Party. Don't go by the name, exactly it's not a party for the Britishers. But then, if you see guys, Boston Tea Party, it's an iconic event of the British American history. What is being done? Samuel Adams and his group that is known as Sons of Liberty, what they have done is they boarded one of these ships in Boston Harbor and threw the chest, that is all the boxes were thrown in the sea. And thus they protested against this particular law. Am I clear about this? Boston Tea Party, what exactly is happening? So you had written till purpose of this, write the next Tea Act of 1773. Just write Tea Act of 1773. Act eliminated all the custom duty. Act eliminated all the custom duty on East India Company's tea. On East India Company's tea, and allowed them to be imported directly in America. And allowed them to be imported directly in America. This was done to assist. This was done to assist the ailing East India Company. Guys, if you all remember, we had studied a topic called Regulating Act of 1773. That all is because the British East India Company was suffering. Ailing East India Company. In response to this incident, happened Boston Tea Party. In response to this, happened Boston Tea Party, where Samuel Adams and Sons of Liberty, threw the chests of tea or boxes of tea overboard. Threw the boxes of tea overboard. Threw the boxes of tea overboard. Am I clear? Write one last line. In response to this act, the government passed, in response to this act, that is Boston, guys, they have done so much of harm to the British. Invariably, what do you expect? The British would bring some draconian laws. So in response to Boston Tea Party, British government brought, you can see, intolerable acts, also known as coercive acts of 1774. Intolerable acts or the coercive acts of 1774. Intolerable acts or the coercive acts, you can see it's written there. Intolerable acts or coercive acts of 1774. Please do write. The Prime Minister right now is Lord North. We have already studied this in Regulating Act. Lord North's government has passed this law. Guys, this is basically, नाम से ही लग रहा है, intolerable, coercive. Because the Americans, they have thrown the tea in the sea, Britishers are going to punish them. Getting my point? They are going to bring such draconian laws, such bad laws through which, who will be punished? Americans. Now guys, one of the first punishment was seal the Boston port. Wherever this has happened, seal that. Don't let any ship come, don't let any ship go from there. Guys, if the port will close, many people will lose jobs. Most of them would be whom? Local people. So first intolerable act was Boston Port Act. So they have done what? They have closed the port of Boston rather. First intolerable act is Boston Port Act. Under this, what is being done? This port is closed now. The port has been closed now. Just drop the pen after this line. Listen to me for a second. Intolerable acts, there are many laws under this. The most important is Boston Port Act. Port is now closed till we do not recover the money that we have lost. Look at the board for a second, everyone. Second intolerable act is Administration of Justice Act 1774. Britishers have got the power. If they want, they could take away, royal governor who would be posted there. They could transfer any case if they felt that in the colony, impartial hearing might not happen. Third, Massachusetts. Now there could not be any town meetings without the consent of the governor. Earlier popularly elected councils, they were now stopped. Now there would be nominations. You can see council will be appointed by the king. The Massachusetts royal governor, they will give power to remove anyone, marshal, justice, anyone. All that is in their hands. Quartering, we have already studied. In anybody's houses, the British forces could stay. So I hope, because now we'll move to the totally different topic. Guys, this is the last major incident. If you see, after the Boston Port Act, write 3 more acts. Number 1, Administration of Justice Act 1774. Right now, only write the act's name. Do not go deep into that. Anyways, I don't expect you will have to write all this, but write the law. Administration of Justice Act 1774. Next one, Massachusetts Government Act 1774. Massachusetts Government Act 1774. Last one, Quartering Act 1774. Everyone, we are done with the major events of the war. Of the American Revolution. Each one of you, if you turn your pages, we started with 1763 Proclamation. We had Stamp Act, Rockham Declaration. Then we had Townshend Duties. we had this Boston Tea Act, then Boston Tea Party, then we just now saw the Intolerable Acts. 6-7 points we discussed. Now all of you tell me, don't you think after all this has happened, invariably the Americans would be pissed off? They would be very, very angry at whom? British. Don't you think the ground is totally prepared that now should the war of independence begin? But for the war to begin, you need to do some sort of meeting. Let us discuss before. You cannot start, I'll fight. Let us first of all discuss, talk amongst ourselves. So for this you organize first Philadelphia, you can see, convention in 1774. Overall 3 conventions we will see, 74, 75, 87. All the conventions you can see are also known as first, second or third Continental Congress. Guys, it's a meeting where the delegates of all the colonies are invited. And why it is being organized? Because of the intolerable acts that have been passed by whom? By the British government. What they are saying, we'll meet again next year. That's why I said there are 3 conventions, 74, 75 and 87. They are saying if there is future action needed, we will meet again next year. In the meantime, they prepared what all rights they must be having. And invariably they said that the Americans should get the power to right to tax themselves. This power should not be with whom? British. And thus begins your American War of Independence between 1775 to 1783. You can see convention is in 74. Next important topic is your war. Everyone, you don't have to study about the war. Just because there are only 2 slides I have given here. Rest done. Nothing more than that. Nobody will ask you how many people died, which place this war happened. That's for medieval history, not for this place. Here you have to remember 2 war name, and I'll show you. One is Lexington and another is Concord. In 2 places there is a war at the very beginning. British side, their commander, British general's name is Thomas Gage, who had fortified his position at one of the places. He is the military governor of Massachusetts. Overall they will fight for 8 years. Ultimately they will lose, and we don't have to get into this. What we are worried more is about the second Philadelphia conference. You can see which year. They had said we will meet again next year if the conditions warrant. Why are they meeting? Because before this only in 1774 they have fought 2 places. You can see here who is the commander in chief. You will have to put 3 star marks here. Very, very important. What did they decide? Declaration of American Independence. Which day do they celebrate even today? July 4th. Please remember, Americans have declared we are now independent. British would agree to this only in 1783 after Treaty of Paris. So till then Britishers are going to fight. How many colonies? Till now 13 only. So 13 versus British. We will see this name again. He is going to draft all this rights. Am I clear? What was the last thing that you had written? The 4 acts. Intolerable acts you had written. Just write one thing. The passage of these intolerable acts, invariably made the relations unsatisfactory, leading to organizing of First Philadelphia Convention 1774. First Philadelphia Convention of 1774. First Philadelphia Convention of 1774 to consider the grievances of American people, to consider the grievances of American people and discuss response to these intolerable acts and discuss response to these intolerable acts. Just right after this only, Second Philadelphia Convention, 1775. Because guys, there only it was decided. We will come back again if needed. I'm not writing that line, but I'm directly coming to Second Philadelphia Convention, 1775. Please write this name. George Washington, appointed commander of the American forces. George Washington, appointed commander, because you should know which Philadelphia Conference has done what. George Washington declared commander of the American forces. 4th July 1775 to be celebrated as Independence Day. 4th July 1775 to be celebrated as Independence Day. In fact, write 4th July 1775 so that you remember from which year onwards they have started doing this. 4th July 1775. Third very important point, decided the formation of Continental Army. Decided the formation of Continental Army. Decided the formation of Continental Army. Decided the formation. Guys, three things have been decided here. Who is the commander? George Washington. 4th July is going to be our independence, and we are going to form a army. Decided to form a Continental Army. Last line. After army, write in response to the battles at Lexington, etc. In response to the battles at Lexington, etc. In response to the battles at Lexington, etc. For 8 years this war happened. Which is the final treaty? Treaty of Paris. Simple. Britain has accepted America's independence. So please write Treaty of Paris. Britain formally recognized. See, America says 4th July 1775. We are now independent. Britain accepted this in 1783. Okay, fine enough. You are independent. So under Treaty of Paris, Britain formally accepts America's independence. Britain officially accepts America's independence. Guys, these are some other terms, not that important, but then, for example, there were many American people who had supported British during the war. So they said we will leniently treat them. Similarly, the amount, the debt and all the companies would have taken, American companies would have taken from Britain, all that was discussed and everything was sorted at this point of time. We are not worried about other points, we are mostly worried about the first point. Am I clear? It's around 3:38. I'll give you a 10 minutes break. Just look at this slide and go for the break. What were the reasons for the defeat of British? Everyone, not going to explain. Mostly you should understand. The number one is geographical complexities. These were very, mountains, rivers. America is a vast land, not that easy for them. George Washington as a leader proved to be very, very effective. Third, America or American people, they got the support of France and Spain here. Everyone. Third point is going to be very, very important for us in the next chapter, French Revolution. In Hindi we have a कहावत, a saying, जो दूसरे के लिए गड्ढा खोदता है खुद गिरता है उसमें. I don't know what exactly in English it is. One who digs the pit for somebody else falls in that. French were assisting whom? Americans this time. Invariably they utilized a lot of their money. They spent a lot of their money here. And guys, that created trouble for them. And you can see this is happening when 1783, 1789 French Revolution is going to happen. Because French were having economic issues because they had become bankrupt. They had supported Americans so much here. Getting my point? Fourth, of course, Britain and America, geographical distance is also a factor. Fifth, British were worried that if they, get involved here too much, French may attack Ireland. We have already seen the map. Last, there were some differences between the monarchy and the parliament of the Britain also in those days. Write these 6 points, more than enough. It's a 10-minute, 4 o'clock we restart. Last part of the chapter, the effects of this American Revolution.